Hello, welcome to this video. Thanks for tuning in, sharing in this now moment with myself and with one another. If you have not seen these videos before, welcome back if you have. My intention is unity and oneness and the highest levels of love light. I just want to go into a little flow. I'm in my car, I'm parked. Just wanted to kind of do a quick energy update, maybe just some inflow light language. So this is meant to be felt, not necessarily understood on a linear scale, although it can be. We'll see what comes through. And as you make shifts, as you shift forward in leaps and bounds, so too does the reality in which we are structured and held within. That which we were held within is boundless. However, we have been bound to certain information. Certain information has kept us in binding, in bound. Inbound information, like coming in information, is leaving us overwhelmed. In many cases, we invite you to stop filling the void with, I'm hearing inexcusable, inexplausible information. So some of the information, it's like it can't be explained. So this is a play on words. So I'll have to come back and maybe look at this later. I say that all the time and I never come back and type these up. So I'll have to do that. The more we stay in flow, the less bound we are to certain principalities, certain prince doctrines, certain indoctrination. I'm seeing prince as Prince, right? Like royalty, and that's just an example. It's not necessarily the prince, but it's also prints, Prints, which are books and stories in print. This can also be television, media, and this is many different layers. For this has left imprints on our ability to see past what is laid out before us. I'm seeing a newspaper. So this newspaper, what I'm seeing is it holds information about our past. Because once we read the newspaper, it isn't current. And I talked about this before. So if we think of time, right, it's not actual current information once we read it. It's already happened. So we're being invited to step out of this. I'm being shown right now that the more present we stay, the more we stay in presence, and the less we look back at what's going on behind us, the more we are actually changing our future. Does that make sense? So it's like, again, what I talked about in that heart video where we're projecting out from our heart. And as we step forward into that, it then shifts our reality. It shifts our awareness around our reality. It shifts our perspectives around our reality, which then changes our reality because we are divine creators and manifestors. And then we bring forward into our future what it is that we seek to bind to us. I'm seeing this as a reference to DNA and our reality. Like, what do we want to stick in our reality? I guess I'm going kind of back and forth here so I can give a little bit of an energy update about what I'm seeing and feeling, in addition to the light language, in addition to the flow, so it'll be maybe easier to understand and interpret. Yet we also invite you to be open, for as the misspellings spill out around you, and again, this is reference back to reading and newspapers, but also what we're reading into. So none of this is necessarily literally what we're reading. It's also how, again, what are we reading into? How are we reading into certain situations? The more we can be present with ourselves, the more we can come into that state of presence and awareness, the less likely we will be to misread the actions of others, misinterpret, and to see things from a more, I'm hearing broadband perspective, a broader bandwidth. For as we allow the activations that are flowing into our system, stem cells, right? Our DNA, our ability to recycle old patterns and create new energy from these recycled energies and patterns becomes a stronger forte, so to speak. It becomes a habitual frequency and pattern, which then lays the tracks, and again, play on words, for our future. It lays the tracks for our current trajectory. So when I say lay the tracks, I see train tracks, I see transportation, I also see the tracks as a ladder, as in DNA. But this is also tracking, like it anchors it in. So the more we focus on our expansion and the more we focus on grounding and anchoring that into our reality, the more it cements it into reality. Because if you think of a train track, it starts off and it's rolled out, and then it has to be anchored into the ground for it to work. There is much at work here in the energy. There are many different receptive pathways that are opening in the starseed community, in the starseed collective. Yet when we use the word collective, we invite you to see this on a different layer as well, and recognize that each individual person makes up the collective whole, a unit, if you will. We must unify within our own selves, before we seek to unify at a mass scale. For if we are unifying at a mass scale out of unity within our own cell, I'm seeing T cells, within our own expression, we are then unifying with some force that is beyond our ability to I'm seeing like this as a false front is what I'm hearing. So because what is it really based on? If we don't know thyself, we're unifying with the collective based on a movement that's based on a pattern that is essentially back to what I was writing about, that was written, that was laid out before us, that was imprinted. So there's a lot of people that haven't done the work on themselves, or aren't doing the work on themselves, or are afraid, or whatever it might be, and they're only operating off of the imprints that have been passed down from their lineage, from their ancestry, same thing, from their families, from habit patterns. I keep seeing this reference to get out of the old habits, because this habitual training has entrained the brain to focus on certain, I'm seeing entrainments, enchantments, entrancements, encampments. This could all be played with. And then as we join forces with others who are also, I'm hearing, lost in confusion, lost in transfusion. So I'm seeing it as like a transference of energy. It's like when we go to a football game, even if we're not a fan of any team, we get excited because everybody else around us is excited. It's literally contagious. So I'm hearing, which contagion are we passing on? And if we're getting excited about something that isn't, not even a positive, I'm seeing it as a shareable DNA wave. So I talked about this in a previous video. We're either in the process of creating and expanding, or we're in the process of contracting. And it's okay to go through periods of contraction before birthing something, or periods of going within before coming out and saying, this is where I'm at now. We have to do that in order to find ourselves. But what I'm seeing is, I'm referring to more of when things start to wither on the vine. So if we're feeding dead energy that isn't usable for our expansion, it isn't what our new reality is based on. It is only leading us to the black hole versus the white hole, I guess, so to speak. Implosion versus, so when something explodes, it breaks up into pieces and it goes out all over the place, right? And then it kind of dissolves, it fizzles. But when something implodes, it holds all that energy. And there's different variations. So I'm talking about heart math coherence here. I'm talking about the implosiveness of the heart. And it becomes a never-ending toroidal spin, right? And this creates this implosiveness that is part of our gene pool. It's our key to our genes, so to speak. And I'm sure the gene keys, a lot of my friends and fellow light workers are into the gene keys. I haven't read the book yet, but I'm sure there's some things in there about that. Some of my sisters have been talking about it, but it literally furthers our ability to I'm hearing expel, to get rid of the old spell, but also to expand, and also the ability to then absorb that information and its usable energy versus unusable energy. Not that any energy is unusable, because everything can be recycled and used, but it's almost like I'm getting that reference to is it Guardians? No, it's Doctor Strange, one of my favorite Marvel comic movies. And there's a planet in it that eats everything. All it does is come in and destroy other planets. That is a consumable force, and it cannot be supported forever. And because eventually it's not giving back anything. Our true life force is a constant give, expand, and contract. It isn't just contract, and take. So if we're doing things that assist the growth of the universe, the cosmos, the omniverse, each other, it furthers our knowing thyself versus consumption, if that makes sense. That's kind of the easiest way for me to say that. For pure consumable raw energy is never ending. It is not something that is finite. It is infinite, infinite, found within us. This has been kept secret from us, for without the idea of necessary consumption, I'm seeing a reference to we're running out of this, we're running out of that. What are we seeing reflected back to us right now? Running out of things, right? It's a lack mentality. It creates fear. Fear, it feeds on itself, but eventually it's a flame that burns out at both ends, and then it has nothing else to feed off of. So therefore it feeds on itself and it implodes into non-creativity, right? Or explodes. I don't know. We'll use those words interchangeably right now because that's not the point. What we are talking about is that charge that we create as a spark and source of divinity and divine expression of source light, which is what we all have access to. It is free energy. It is pure power. It is empowerment. Empowerment, not needing to constantly refuel from something that is finite. And that's something that our consumerism is consuming us. So this is just all a play on words. This also has to do with this concept that we need to rely on somebody else outside of us to be our source of energy. We all can utilize that from time to time. We all need things to inspire us, right? But we have to find our inner inspiration. And if you look up that word and you think of it, I see it as inner fire alchemy. And inner fire, it's not just alchemy, it's inner spire, S-P-H-I-R-E, that spiral that goes up that is connected to all things. As we light our own fires, as we allow ourselves to fuel the fire within, we then fuel forward. Fuel, all play on words. We allow ourselves to feed on the true source of our never-ending resource. This inner fire is consumable and creates a higher consumption rate. This is a play on words, for it is not consuming anything. It is assuming, it is taking on the energy in which it may then display. That's when it becomes alchemy, is what I'm saying. It is not to be interchanged with assuming something. There's another word for it, but anyways. So we become as one, as you and me with it, in other words. And then as we become one with this frequency, everything shifts around us. I saw this morning, pulling in our reality, a person driving in front of me, and in the center was a person that looked like a flame, and around it was the flame. And I'm having all these references to the seven dwarfs, and hi ho, it's off to work we go, and all these references to holmium, which is a whole other flow. But my point is that we are the elements, we are the elementals, it's within us. And I want to just touch briefly on this, that there's a lot going on out there and I keep coming back to the newspaper, and I don't know why this is. I'm seeing the print, again, the imprinting, the habits, the stories, that it's an old form of communication. Anyways, what I'm seeing is that we don't need that to communicate. We are telepathic, we are claircognizant, we are clairaudient, right? We have the ability to do all of these amazing things. We have these amazing skill sets that are truly imprinted in us. But then on top of that, we've been imprinted and overlaid with these concepts and ideas. And I'm hearing like a schizophrenic, and this is a play on words, schizophrenic. I'll have to play with that because it causes a schism and it causes a split, because there's the real us and then there's the personification that we've taken on as a human being, that we've been told this is who you really are. And that has been overlaid on top of these other layers and then been relabeled as junk DNA, as false, as fake, as science fiction, right? So all of this has been we've been misinformed, which has caused us to misfit, and we're unable to put all the pieces of the puzzle together. But from what I'm seeing and feeling is that's shifted so dramatically that the only thing that's really left is this thin layer that is cracking, like the egg that I've talked about. And within us is the golden yolk. And if we can allow that to spill out, not only does it fill the cracks, it allows the old to crumble away, and we then birth this new egg, this golden egg, which holds all of the inner information and brings it forward so that we can spill it forward, so we can spell it forward, so that we can create our new spell, so we can cast a spell, meaning we're speaking, thinking, feeling, knowing into our reality what is the truth for us. There's so many different layers to this, and the power that we have, because last but not least, all of this information that we are being overloaded with, that is, let's say we read it in a paper and it's layer after layer after layer after layer. A lot of us are calling it, we've been red pilled, right? We've been over red pilled, but that's only one version of the matrix. Right? That version exists within, let's say, a checkerboard or a cube. But there's bigger, better shapes that are beyond the cube, right? There's these platonic solids. And what happens is when we let that shatter, we then realize that there's even more than the red pill. There's the purple pill, which I've talked about before. Purple pill is that crown chakra opening to source, not just opening and awakening to one layer of reality, which holds many different layers of reality that are anchored into that particular matrix. Does that make sense? So I might have knowledge about all of the stuff that's being disclosed. And let's just name off 10 subjects that maybe we are thinking about that has been revealed to us in the last year. We could go, I'm not going to even label them because there's so many. I could say, I know about this, I know about this, I know about this, I know about this, I know about this. All of these disclosures, all of these systems that we are becoming aware of as a collective, all of that is attached to a 3D matrix, for example, interlaid or overlaid by a 4D matrix. But that can only be supported by those systems that we are now exposing, or they are being exposed to us, because our light is spilling forth so much that it is able to expose those realities for the truth of what they are. Therefore, those realities cannot lay any more tracks. Those tracks are being pulled up and recycled. And it's all about us. The bigger question is why? The reason isn't why. It isn't about this new dark order. It isn't about any of that. It is, but it is in the 3D, 4D perhaps. But why? The reason why isn't just its power, but it's because we hold the power. And the answer is, you have no power over me, just like The Labyrinth, right? That was soft disclosure, the movie The Labyrinth. I'm just a worm. Anyways, if you haven't seen that movie, my point is, or if you haven't seen The Matrix, 2 movies I highly recommend. I mean, who doesn't want to watch David Bowie dance with a bunch of puppets? Even though his outfit's a little questionable, my point is, I hope you're following, is that our reality is like that. And there's so much that we're aware of that it's overloading our sensory system. And I hate to, let me rephrase that. I have to kind of delete, cancel, cure the word hate. It's an old word that I used to use, like I hate this, I hate that. What I want to say is that these realities are being exposed for what they are, and they cannot take hold anymore. If we step back and say, that reality no longer holds power for me. What holds power for me is my belief, my heart function, my relationship with myself, my relationships with my family, my friends, the people that are in my life, how I treat others. How am I doing what makes me happy? Am I creating? Am I moving? Am I eating the right foods? Am I giving back to Mother Earth? Am I giving back to the people who have shared with me? Can I assist in any way? Can I be of service, yet at the same time not overserve so that I'm taking away from my own well-being? And these seem so simple, but it really is about getting back to the basics. So what happens is, as we do this, we pull out of the matrix, and we say, you no longer hold power over me. I am a divine sovereign being. And the matrix is wanting to, as it sinks in on itself, as it collapses or implodes on itself, it's trying to suck as much with it as it can so that it can try to keep expanding. But it can't if we don't give it that, give it what it's asking. And I'm talking like it's an inanimate object, but it is a creation that has been created from many different imprints and spells and energies and so on and so forth. So I went a little off subject, but it's all connected. And this is an energy update. So essentially what I'm being shown is, be playful, lighten up, recognize that what we're being exposed to isn't the reason. It's all about what's really the core of it, that we are divine manifestors. Why else is there so much distraction going on? It is just that, to pull apart so that finite field can feed on our energy, because that finite field doesn't realize that it's part of source. It doesn't need to feed on us, but because it believes so strongly for so long that it has become real for it. So eventually it will go back to source. But in the meantime, these beings, these entities, these beliefs, these stories feel like they need to feed on us, because they do at this point, in order to stay and hold power so that their spark doesn't die out. But our spark won't die out because we aren't needing to do that. We have passed that point if we've done the work and chosen made that choice to be a divine sovereign being, to be free. From one perspective. Another perspective is that we're all going through this and ultimately everybody will get to that point. And I'm not here to say that's right or wrong. What I just want to share is what I'm seeing from my perspective and what my guides have been sharing with me. So that's my energy update. I know it's kind of all over the place, but I hope that somebody watching this kind of senses what it is that I'm sharing here. So I'm going to go end with a little light language. And as this spell is broken, all the spells that have been cast since ancient times are now reaching their highest chart, their pop chart history. I'm seeing high times, like the times tables, if you put them in a box, have reached their highest capacity and they cannot multiply anymore. They've reached their glass ceiling, reference back to Snow White and the glass coffin. They've reached their capacity for growth. And so now it comes back into this falling apart. And we have then expanded and are leaving behind that which is unexpandable, that which is unexplainable in the newer frequencies and newer energies. Like it can't be explained away. We're like, look, we're an infinite. What you're talking about is finite and it doesn't sink in. It cannot sink up to the next level. Therefore, I'm seeing it's unexplainable. So the X plane, it's in another plane of existence. It cannot cross with our plane. Therefore, it's going wah wah. And as we allow this to unfold, so too will the technologies unfold, be told, that have been hidden, that have been unexplainable because they could not exist on the lower planes. They could not be fully supported. So we are moving into a higher support system. And as we support one another, as we support the higher accords, the higher echelons, the higher chords, the fractal of one rather than, I'm seeing fractalization, like fracturization, but connecting into this higher expression. I'm seeing the flower of life, or a form of that, so to speak. It's a little different, but so we are seeing past this that is being presented, that is being pre-scented. So it was sent before. It's old. And we honor all that are on this path, on this walk of freedom together. For we are free when we believe that we are free, when we support that which is freedom, when we allow ourselves to be free in the true expression of sight, of foresight. So I'm seeing the reference to higher vision versus only seeing the mouse versus the eagle, using both of those together and creating this new space of seeing the rose, penrose, triangle, and a rose. I'm going to end on that note. In love and light. Namaste.